Steve Kim for UCN Live, and I'm here with Peter Nelson of HBO Sports. Peter, as it relates to Gennady Golovkin, I don't think there's any doubt he is one of the pillars of your boxing franchise. But as you go along to this process, do you find it more difficult to find opponents that are willing to step in the ring with him?
It's always been a challenge to find opponents to step in the ring with him, but that's part of what makes him a fan favorite, is the style of fight that he exhibits. He's become a disruptive technology in the sport, and we feel lucky to have him.
We know what's going on in the business. It's a very fractured business. There are factions, and there are certain fighters that simply are not eligible to fight on one side of the fence or the other. Does that complicate the issue as it relates to Golovkin?
The goal with Tom Loeffler at K2 has always been to architect a brand behind Gennady, and what we've chosen to do is simply provide the platform. And so Gennady, fight by fight, part of the brand has always been to find the toughest opponent available. And every time that we've come up with whatever opponent it is that we can put in front of him, we've never encountered any resistance whatsoever from Tom Loeffler, Gennady, or his team. You
know, for the longest time, people thought it would either be Toriano Johnson or Highland. Monroe kind of was like a dark horse pick that came out of nowhere. When did he enter the discussions with HBO Sports and K2 Promotions?
Well, with Tom, we went through a list of opponents that we found to be approvable. And so Tom was working on, I believe, different fights at different stages throughout the course of it. But one thing led to another, and Willie emerged as the most likely candidate. And for Tom, the fight quickly came together once he really got into the negotiation with Artie Palula.
When you look at this current situation, May 16th, there's an attachment, Roman Gonzalez. When did you start to think that he would be appropriate for HBO airwaves? So let's face it, the history of HBO, there has been a little bit of a barrier, let's say below 118, where you guys don't necessarily showcase those weight divisions.
Yes, I believe you refer to it as the glass basement.
Glass basement or the glass floor, yes.
Chocolatito is one of the signature attractions in the sport. He's not an attachment in this case. I think he's a great attraction. And he's going to elevate this show with Gennady Golovkin and Chocolatito both on one card. It's an incredible value for fans who are buying tickets, which is the original pay-per-view. And I think between the two of them being on one show together, you're going to have an amazing atmosphere and night here on May the 16th.
If Chocolatito impresses against Edgar Sosa, blows him out of there, do you believe that Chocolatito can become a component of the HBO Galaxy on a consistent level?
When a fighter has ascended to the rank that Chocolatito has put in the work, the effort, the sacrifice, in order to become one of the pound-for-pound best fighters in the sport, there shouldn't be any barriers. It should be just as easy for a fighter at heavyweight as a fighter at strawweight to be able to be on the highest platform, highest visibility that's possible and available to him if the fans demand it and respect it. And in his case, they absolutely have. Going
back to Gennady Golovkin, can you see a time, and obviously he's putting in work, working in volume, very active by today's standards. When do you think he breaks through into that pay-per-view realm, or at least fights one of the marquee fighters?
Well, as I mentioned just now, buying a ticket to see a fighter is the original pay-per-view, and what we saw at the Stub Hub Center, where he sold out the arena there, and what the pre-sale augurs to be for May the 16th, I think what you're seeing gradually is a club forming around him of people who believe that they can count on their money's worth when they buy into a Gennady Golovkin event.
Talking about some of the aspects of HBO Sports this past weekend, you were in Montreal, the Bell Center. I think Sergey Kovalev once again stamped his claim as the best light heavyweight in the world. What is the big picture for him moving forward?
Well, he's become an incredible attraction in his own right, and traveling first when he fought Bernard 45 minutes away from Philadelphia, and then really going into the backyard of his opponent as the light heavyweight champion. He doesn't leave it to the judges, and I read your piece on this just recently, which I thought excellently laid out how he was willing to travel, has gloves, and put him in passport, put him in a ring anywhere in the world against any opponent, and he's willing to be there and knock out whoever it is that's in front of him.
Peter, the other fight people want to see at light heavyweight is Adonis Stevenson, the lineal champion, against Sergey Kovalev. Now, you're on the doorstep of making that fight last year, and quite frankly, it became Heymanized. We know the current climate of where everything stands with the PBC and the division that exists in boxing. Is Kovalev-Stevenson realistic in 2015?
In boxing, we always focus on the art of the possible. And so On one day, something might seem unlikely, and then the next day, it turns around entirely. And so all we can do is focus on the fights that the fans want to see and do our best to make them come to fruition.
Miguel Cotto, he signed a new deal with Rock Nation. His union with Top Rank, I believe, is officially ended for good. Have there been discussions between you and Cotto in relationship to his next bout?
Prefer not to discuss any ongoing or upcoming, but what we know is that Miguel Cotto is off one of the most spectacular performances of his career against Sergio Martinez, and we certainly hope to be a part of the future for him in the next steps of his career.
So in other words, TBA. Great schedule put together by HBO in the first half of 2015. I think your crown jewel is Matisse Provodnikov. Was it a no-brainer for you guys to match the offer of the other network to add that to your lineup?
That fight has the potential to be the fight of the year, fight of the decade. That fight has all the hallmarks of being an all-action fight from the moment they turn on the lights that night. So for us, as soon as it became an opportunity to be able to present that fight on our network, we obviously jumped at it.
Peter, final question. May 2nd is the fight I think we've been waiting at least 5 years for. Pacquiao against Mayweather. From your perspective, what is the potential impact of that particular fight?
It augurs great for the sport of boxing. It transcends the sport of boxing and transcends sport in general. My mother talks to me about this fight. She, I don't even know, was aware that I worked in boxing. So this event is of such a magnitude. It's a seismic event for the sport, and as a fan, I can't wait to see it happen.
All right, Peter, I'll be seeing you ringside. This is Peter Nelson of HBO Sports. This is Steve Kim for UCN Live.